Hi everyone, Kate back for the next in my Betsy Tacy 2019 review videos, and I am late. This video, the schedule we have, it's supposed to go up on the 25th of the month, so I am late. I do apologize for that. August has just not been a big reading month for me, so I got a late start on Betsy's wedding. Kelly from Books I'm Not Reading and Katie from Life Between Words are the other hosts in this really fun readathon. Or read along. I always get them mixed up. Anyhow, so Betsy's Wedding, I actually think is my favorite thus far out of the books. This will not be a spoiler-free video. One, there's too much I want to talk about, and two, I don't really know of anybody who has commented on my Betsy Tacy videos that hasn't already read the book. So I feel like the crowd that is reading the books is watching the review videos, and those who aren't reading the books aren't watching the review videos, if that makes sense. So anyhow, this starts off with just such a sweet beginning where Betsy is getting back to the States. She's going to New York and Joe is waiting for her, and they have the sweetest reunion. He is just so enamored with her and not afraid to tell her. And in response, Betsy is just so grateful that their relationship is mended and that they can, really be together finally without any hindrances. They're so kind of, things keep getting in the way of them before this, and they keep having to try to fix things up again. And so I really enjoyed that there was no stress of like, will they, won't they in this one. There was just really this kind of safe feeling about Betsy and Joe being together as a couple. And Joe wants to get married right away. He knows Betsy's the one for him. And I think he's a little worried that if they don't do it now, like they just won't ever. And he talks Betsy's family into doing it. And they're engaged a week. That's what it is. But he talks Betsy's family into it. And so they go ahead and get married. And I just really loved hearing about the sweet newlywed days, and it made me kind of look back on when I was a newlywed and kind of getting used to living with another person and getting used to their idiosyncrasies and kind of how you want the household to be run together, the different preferences that you have and how things are set up, and just how things happen with the budget. And you have a very steep learning curve, when you're doing all this together. And so it can be stressful. Marriage can be stressful, but if you marry somebody that you're friends with, it can also just be really wonderful. And so I really enjoyed that. Here, they enjoy each other's company so much. And I remember when I was first married, I was like, it's like a sleepover every night. It was just so fun to get to hang out so much. And also to hear about Betsy's cooking endeavors, because she's a novice. She doesn't really know much how to cook. And so it's a very steep learning curve there. And so very early in the book, after Betsy and Joe are married, Tacy has a baby. And it just made me think about when I had my first baby, because when Betsy is still in Germany, she's at this place where they make these beautiful dolls, and she ends up buying a beautiful doll for Tacy's future daughter. And people say, well, she could have a boy, but Betsy is convinced. She says, no, Tacy couldn't have anything but a sweet little girl. And I remember when I was pregnant with my first, I thought, oh my goodness, we're pregnant. We're going to have a little girl. I'm so excited. And I was so convinced that I had convinced my husband we were having a little girl. And so I was entirely shocked when we had our ultrasound and they told me it was a boy. I had no idea. And then with the second one, I was a lot less sure, and it was a boy also. So I felt kind of this kinship to Tacy, that she kind of thought both of them might have been a girl, and then both of them were boys. So I thought that was a fun little detail in there. It was interesting too to see how this was in Minneapolis now, and the crowd kind of all moved to Minneapolis. And Cab is the only one from the crowd who's still in Deep Valley. So he has this sort of loneliness. You guys are all here in Minneapolis. And it's really sweet too that when Betsy and Joe get married, she calls Cab on the phone to invite him to come. And he says, well, I'd love to come, but I'm having my own wedding that day. and it's really sweet. They share a wedding anniversary, and Cab even says at some point, like, you guys should come and we should celebrate our wedding anniversaries together. And it's really neat that she keeps up these friendships with Cab and with Carney, and her family. Obviously she's still very close with her family, and also Tib is there living in Minneapolis. And Tib, I really enjoyed Tib's storyline in this. You know, at the very beginning, Betsy gets married, and Tacy has already been married for several years now. So Tib is kind of resistant to getting married because she just thinks there isn't anybody out there who will be suited to her, anybody out there who she's willing to be married to. She does meet a fair number of guys who are really patronizing to her because she is this petite little blonde, so they kind of underestimate her intelligence and her independence, which is really unfortunate. And so I love that she doesn't settle. There's a couple of different beaux, you know, that she goes around with, and one in particular who goes by Rocky, who like isn't the wrestler, but anyhow, he is just dreadful. He's so awful. And one of the things that really bothered me about him is that he belittles Tib's interests. And that is just a giant red flag. If there's somebody who thinks the fun that you do is silly, then there's no need to continue in a relationship, because you want to be with somebody that thinks the things that you think are cool are cool. And that's what I really appreciated about Betsy and Joe, is just their enthusiasm for life. You know, Betsy really wants to do well by taking care of the house, and she works on her writing some. She has an apple tree that she loves to write by, and yeah, just doing things well. And Joe is just so enthusiastic about his job as working for the newspaper at a certain point, and he has a couple jobs, but I just love their enthusiasm for that. Another aspect about this book that I thought was really fun is the Violent Study Club. And it's this group of people who are bibliophiles and aspiring writers. And it was a little bit like the Literary Potato Peel Pie Society, in that they'll really debate books and kind of just issues that are in books, and they'll show their writing to one another. And it was really fun just to see the gusto that they discuss things in. There's one person that Betsy said about her that she lived for books and friends and collected both in large numbers. I thought that was so fun and descriptive, hopefully, of a lot of people in the BookTube community. Another thing that I liked about this is that we get to see the happily ever after. You know, in a lot of romances that happen, it just says, and they lived happily ever after, and then you don't really see much of it. So I love that we get the, and they lived happily ever after, but we see what that's like up until a point, because then later on in the book, things are really ramping up with World War I, and the US has finally decided that they are going to be, they're going to take part in this. And so Joe just without even hesitating decides he's going to enroll. And so I think Betsy does her best to be supportive, but I would just be so devastated and worried if that happened to me. And at the very end of the book, he has left, and that's how it's left. So I was relieved to see at the end of these PS editions just have such great notes and pictures and everything. And Delos, you know, her husband in real life, who's Joe is based on, he did come back. So I was very relieved. Okay, Delos comes back safe. And I was very happy that he did. A couple little things that I ended up looking up while I was reading this. It mentions that Betsy, when she has a couple of guests over, that she wheels out a tea wagon loaded with tea. And so I thought, what is a tea wagon? And it looked actually a fair amount like I thought it would. But I'm like, now I really want a tea wagon. It's really kind of big, so you would want to live in a place that was big enough to accommodate it. But I just thought that was so fun, a tea wagon, and you can lay, you know, kind of lay your tea out to be so pretty, and I just love that. There was also a marshmallow pudding dessert mentioned, and I thought I wanted to look that up right away. So to me, it looks like Jell-O salad, but it says it's marshmallow. So I'm definitely going to look up a recipe, and I will link a recipe in the description box, because now I want to make a marshmallow pudding. It just sounds really like light and refreshing, and yes, just looks really delicious. Another detail that made me look up something was when Betsy is wearing I think it's a high collar black velvet dress, and then the certain way her hair is done. Joe says she looks vampy, and then it talks about an actress, Theda Bara, who like the term vampy was made for. So I wanted to look her up. And so here she is. And that is a term that I don't really think is used much today, but I thought it was fun to look her up and to see how her hair was done. She is very beautiful. And so, yes, Joe says she looks like a vamp. So I definitely had to look that up because I was so intrigued by the term. Another fun detail was that it mentioned several times in the book Betsy driving down Nicollet Avenue. And for any of you Mary Tyler Moore fans, that should have struck a note because the Mary Tyler Moore statue is in the Nicollet Mall in Minneapolis. So I thought it was very fun for Maud Hart Lovelace to have known the city that Mary Tyler Moore kind of spent time in. And I do wonder if the actress Mary Tyler Moore knew about this book series. That would be a real cool like meeting of two of my most favorite things. So in the end, Tib finally does find the one, and they meet very dramatically after Tib is ice skating and she falls down on the ice and he comes to sweep her up, and she's just, it's like lightning. You know, sometimes there's just this X factor and it just hits her with him and she knows right away that he's the one for her. And it's a really sweet meeting, and Joe and Betsy like him instantly. They're really excited for Tib, and it ends with Betsy and Tacy getting to be bridesmaids finally in Tib's wedding, because Tacy had a really small wedding and Betsy's wedding was so rushed that there wasn't time for any of that. And so she tells them, I want to have a big wedding because I want you girls to be my bridesmaids. So fun. And yeah, just a really lovely note for it to end on. And yeah, it is sobering though, because World War I is still going on. And so it's kind of this unstable time in the world. But you feel that kind of Betsy gains strength from her friends and her family, and that's really encouraging. And at the end too, I think she's really encouraged in her faith. She kind of, I think it's hard too when you're on your own for the first time, not living with your parents. You kind of have to decide, like, is my faith my own or is it my parents'? And it seems at the end she's kind of decided more that yes, it is something that she owns for herself. And I was just really pleased to see that detail. So in case you can't tell, I absolutely loved Betsy's wedding. I did not really remember much of it. I remembered her burning pot pie, a meat pie. I remember that detail, but not much else other than that. And I hope that you will join us because the Deep Valley fun is not over yet. In the month of September, we will be reading Carney's House Party. And this is a little novella, but I think it's about Carney kind of meeting and falling in love with her husband. So I think if we would have gone in order, we actually probably maybe should have read it before Betsy's wedding, but I didn't realize that until after, you know, we had bought it and scheduled it. But I'm very excited to continue reading. I hope you are still enjoying these, and I will be back next month for a video on Carney's House Party.